Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today for this webinar, Relocating to Spain, Visa and Financial Insights for British Citizens and Expats. I trust it will be very valuable for all. If you don't mind, we will be waiting a couple of minutes to give time to all the attendees to join the session before starting. So we'll be starting at 10:32. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. Good morning again to all of you, to the recent people who just arrived. And on behalf of the Spanish Chamber of Commerce in the UK, I would like to give you a warm welcome to this morning's webinar. Today, we are going to take a closer look at living in Spain as a UK citizen or as a Spanish expat returning home after more than 5 years. Relocating from the UK to Spain post-Brexit comes with new residency and visa requirements, which we'll try to help you all navigate with the expert knowledge of Anna Klev&Vera, partner at international law firm Klev&Vera, and Barry Davis, partner and financial advisor at Spectrum IFA Group. Klev&Vera is a boutique law firm which offers premium legal services to international investors and businesses in Spain. It consists of a multilingual team of lawyers and paralegals, each of them with international background and specializing in different areas of legal practice. Anna Klev&Vera has more than 20 years of legal practice in international law and is a certified lawyer with the Bar Association of Barcelona. She holds a LLM in International Human Rights Law from England, from which she received a full scholarship on merits, and a master's degree in international law in Abogacía Internacional in Spain. Klev&Vera advises British clients on immigration and investment strategies to Spain and assists in implementing them. On the other half, the Spectrum IFA Group is a firm of international financial advisors for British expats in Spain. They help British people in Spain navigate the Spanish tax system, liaise with local experts for clients, have a service to explain what financial actions need to be taken before and after a move to Spain, use investments that are tax efficient in Spain, and assist how to deal with inheritances and inheritance planning in Spain. Barry Davis, an ex-RAF accounts officer, has been an independent financial advisor in the UK for 21 years and now has 19 years of helping expats living in Spain. As an expat himself, he has experienced firsthand how to deal with ISAs, UK pensions, and even receiving an inheritance. Using cash flow modeling tools, he helps expats secure their family's financial future. Well, as a friendly reminder, this session is being recorded so that we can share it with you later. Throughout the duration of the session, you can submit your questions via the Q&A function, and they will be answered by Anna and Barry following the presentation. Now, without further ado, I'll hand over to Anna Klev&Vera, partner at Klev&Vera International Law Firm. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you very much, Miriam. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. So I will talk to you about different visa options that are most popular for British citizens. And I would start by guiding you through the complex immigration law that exists in Spain. So we have currently three types of laws, three types of regulations that you see here. The first one is a royal decree that was approved in 2007, and it applies to the citizens of the European Union and their family members. It is the one that was applicable to British citizens before Brexit, but it is no longer the case. No? So we will go to one of those two acts that apply now. And we have an International Mobility Act of 2013, which regulates such categories as highly skilled professionals, researchers, intra-company transfers, digital nomads. It is the same act that regulated the famous golden visas, but starting from 3rd of April, it is no longer an option. And then we have a General Immigration Act from the year 2000 that applies to all other groups that are not covered by the previous two. And these are the immigration options and different visa options. They are really plenty. We will only concentrate on those ones which are the most popular and most frequently requested by our British clients. No? So we have different groups here. We have the one for residents only, those who want to live in Spain. Then we have the option of remote work from Spain, but for a different company abroad. Then we have several work visas, both on payroll or as self-employed. And finally, the last block that we cover will be different family members visas. So we will start by the residence visa, that's also called a non-lucrative visa. It is basically for those ones who have some stable source of income, sufficient financial resources that can live in Spain without working. It is a very popular option between the retirees and those who are self-sufficient and perhaps considering to take a gap year or just relocating to Spain and don't need to work in Spain or anywhere else. And the main requirements for this visa are to have basically a stable passive income and also to have healthcare covered in Spain and not become a burden for the Spanish healthcare system. And all those visas, they also require to have a clean criminal record for the past 5 years at least. So yes, this visa is ideal for those who want to retire in Spain or live in Spain without working. And initially it is given for 1 year, renewal for 2 years, and then it gives an opportunity to apply for a permanent residency and nationality if you want to after 10 years of living in Spain. And this visa allows you also to join with your family members. The application process is done through the Spanish consulates in the UK. You will need to go to apply in person, and all your family members will have to go in person as well, even if they are just newborn babies. The initial visas are for 1 year, and the processing time is usually around 2 months, but delays are possible. And the renewals are done from Spain without leaving. And it is not possible to apply for this visa from Spain. Here I thought it may be interesting for you to see which consulates Spain has in the UK. So you see that there are 3, London, Manchester, and Edinburgh. And you can only apply to the consulate that officially corresponds to your address in the UK. No? So if you live in London, you have to go to the consulate in London, and you cannot go to any other consulate because they are not responsible for your territory. The second most popular option now is the so-called digital nomad visa. And it covers those who have employment abroad. No? So if you work on a payroll in a British company, or if you own your own business, or if you work as an independent contractor, and you have sufficient income from your employment, currently about 2,200 euros per month for the main applicant, and then additional amounts for family members, you can consider getting this visa. So it's basically ideal for those who want to keep the employment in the UK without changing anything, but being physically in Spain and working from here and enjoying, all those advantages that Spain has. And with this visa, you can also include your immediate family. One important requirement for this visa is that you need to have your social security covered. No? So the UK and Spain have bilateral social security agreement that it is actually one of the very few in the world that specifically covers remote work. No? So if you are on a payroll of a British company, your employer only needs to request this form that's called certificate of coverage, and you see here the exact name. So the British company can continue paying the UK national insurance, and you will have all your employment without any change, but physically working from Spain. If this for some reason is not done, then your British employer will be required to open a work center in Spain, and you will be assigned to that working center. But it is not that frequently used because it has more costs and has additional reporting obligations for your employer, so it is much easier for them to get the certificate of coverage and applicable legislation. On the other hand, if you have your own business or if you are an independent contractor and working not on a payroll but by providing services, you can also relocate as a digital nomad, but then you will be required to register in Spain as a freelancer, as autónomo, as it's called in Spanish. And you will have to file some reports and taxes in Spain and also pay social security contributions here. In exchange, you will have access to the public healthcare system. How is the application process? There are two ways. If you are in Spain legally as a tourist, for example, you can apply directly from Spain and you can request your residence permit online. Or if you are in the UK and you want to have your residency approved before you relocate, you can go to the consulate and get a 1-year residence visa. So the advantage of applying from Spain is that you can get directly a residence permit for 3 years, which is more convenient. But if you have your residence visa for 1 year, after it expires, you can go for the residence permit as if you were applying for it from the beginning. Then the group of work visas. Work visas refer to those ones who are actually being hired by a Spanish company on a Spanish employment contract. So in order to apply for this one, you must have a job offer already, like a draft job contract from a Spanish company, and your position must meet criteria for a highly qualified role. And you need to, of course, prove that you have a relevant degree, a university degree, or a relevant professional experience aligned with the position. And typically, it applies for the roles of managers, technical experts, researchers, etc. And the minimum salary that qualifies for this visa is 40,100 euros as of now. This visa initially is issued for 3 years and you can renew it for 2. You can join with your family members from the beginning. You will be covered completely by the Spanish public healthcare system. And one of the most attractive advantages of this scheme is that you can also qualify for so-called back-home law that my colleague Barry will talk to you later a little bit about it. And I forgot to mention that the digital nomad visa on the payroll would also qualify you for the back-home law, but the autonomo visa wouldn't. And the application process is slightly different because whenever you have a sponsoring company, it must be the sponsoring company that first initiates the request for a work permit authorization. So your Spanish employer would file an application online to the immigration office in Spain, and it would be approved within 20 working days. And then 2 conditions that you see here. If you were legally present in Spain when your employer requested your residence authorization, then you can start working immediately and then just apply for your residence card. or if you were outside, then you will need to pass by in person to the Spanish consulate to request your entry visa. It is a special visa that is issued for work permits, and it's issued basically in a very fast time, within 10 working days. And then you come in Spain, you start working, and you request your residence card. The intra-company transfer is also a work visa that refers to those who are on a payroll, but it is slightly different because it has that temporary element. No, it refers for those who are sent to Spain on a temporary basis, but by your British employer, because the British employer have a subsidiary or branch in Spain and they need you there for some time, or because they have a client in Spain and they want you to attend that Spanish client for whichever task. And there are certain requirements, like you must work at least for 3 months for the company to demonstrate relevant expertise, etc. And also to request that social security coverage as if you were to relocate as a digital nomad. So this visa is also initially issued for 3 years, or for the period of your relocation. According to the letter from the company, you can take together, you can come with your immediate family members, and you would qualify for the Beckham law in Spain as well. And your work in Spain would be recognized in the UK under the Social Security Treaty. The application is similar to the regular work permit. So your Spanish branch or your Spanish client requests a work permit authorization. And then if you were abroad, you go to the consulate to get an entry visa, or if you were in Spain legally, then you can start working immediately. Now we move to the group of self-employed visas, and here we distinguish between a so-called startup visa and the regular self-employed. The main difference is that startups are those who have some sort of element of innovation and scalability, and this requires a recognition and approval from one special agency that's called ENISA. And you will need to prove certain requirements, like you have a team with sufficient experience, that you have potential to create jobs, to generate impact in Spain, etc. And it has certain benefits and tax incentives. Apart from Beckham law, there may be also some tax benefits for your business. And it's ideal for those who want to relocate to Spain to start this kind of project, because it has many advantages, not only tax, but other support that the Spanish government provides. And the family members can apply together with you in this visa. The application process is a little bit more complex because you need to prepare a business plan and get it approved by ENISA. And then the residence authorization is approved by the immigration office, and the same. If you were in Spain, you start working on your project, or if you were abroad, you will go to the consulate to get an entry visa. On the other hand, regular self-employed is for any other businesses that then don't fall into a category of a startup. So you will need to prepare a viable business plan, prove your skills, etc., and apply under the general immigration law that is a little bit more complex. One very important difference is that initial visas are issued for 1 year. You can renew them for 4 years, but your family members can only join after your initial residency was renewed for that 4 years period. So for the first year, you will be separated from your family unless they have any other independent residence. So for this procedure, because it is issued under the general immigration law, you cannot actually apply from Spain. You must submit it through the Spanish consulate in person and wait for a significant period. Normally, well, by law, it's 3 months, but in practice, it very frequently takes much longer. The initial visas are issued for 1 year and renewed for 4. Now we move for a block of visas for family members. And here I must mention that we have we are going to have a very significant change of general immigration regulations in Spain. From 20th of May, there will be enforced a new immigration law that modifies many procedures, including separating family members' visas for Spanish citizens in particular. No? So before, they were all covered by the directive of the European citizens, of the EU citizens. But now there will be a difference. If your family member is French or German, you will need to apply under one procedure. But if your family member, for example, your partner, is a Spanish national, you will have to go under the special new procedure established by the general immigration law. So your family member must be already living in Spain or relocate together with you. No? So who can apply? It can be your spouse or registered partner or unregistered partner with proof of stable relationship before you relocate to Spain. And then you see the difference between Spanish and Europeans. No children under 21 for Europeans, but under 26 for Spanish citizens. And then it's possible also to join with your dependent parents or other dependent family members under certain conditions. So these permits are issued for 5 years straight away, and they renewed for 5 years for Spanish citizens, as we understand from this new immigration procedure that is not in force yet, but will start in May, or they are renewed for 10 years for EU citizens family member. And the application process, again, it may be a little bit confusing, but we need to distinguish between the family members of Spaniards and European citizens. For EU citizens, you travel to Spain and apply from here because you don't need an entry visa just to enter Spain. So you file your application to the immigration office of the province where you will live. Or if you are a family member of the Spanish national, you may consider filing it online through the consulate, or in some circumstances, you can travel to Spain and your family member, like your main applicant, can apply from here. But then you will need still to get an entry visa because this new process will be different from the regular European citizens. And finally, one very frequently used permit as well is for those British citizens who were living in Spain before Brexit took place. No? So before the 1st of January 2021, if you or your family member, well, like both of you would have certain rights under the withdrawal agreement. The withdrawal agreement does not cover future family members except future children. So if, let's say, you are a British citizen who are living in Spain before Brexit, and you got married to somebody post-Brexit, and you want to join your spouse to join you in Spain, you would need to go now under the general immigration law through the procedure that's called regular family reunion. And this procedure would cover your spouse, your registered partner, or unregistered partner with proof of stable relationship previous to relocating in Spain. No, that may be a little bit complicated in this case. Children in this regular procedure are permitted under 18 or dependent. And it also covers dependent family members or others under certain conditions. And this new law that will take place, which will start on the 20th of May, also provides for the possibility for one adult child to travel to Spain to take care of British citizens with recognized dependency. The application process is actually one of the most complex of all that we've seen until now, as it requires also a previous step that's called apartment evaluation report. So your family member who lives in Spain will first need to file a request to the town hall of the city where he or she lives, and wait for them to respond, or well, at least wait for 1 month before filing a request to apply for the residence authorization to join with their family members to the immigration office in the province where they live. And this will now be processed through a reduced period of 2 months before, well, now still until 20th of May, 3 months. And after the immigration office approves the residence, then you can go to the consulate to get your entry visa and finally move to Spain. So that's it from me. And now I am passing the floor to Barry Davis, who will continue about the financial insights.
Anna, thank you very much. And if, right, I'll just bring my screen up for you. Bear with me one moment. Alice, could you just pull up the screen, please? Bear with me one moment.
No problem. I can do it as well, Barry.
Okay, thank you, Miriam.
Anna,
Thank you.
great. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Dana, for the visa presentation. For my part, I'll be looking today at how tax is different in the UK from Spain. What do I need to do to be being aware of these differences? There are some things that need to be done before leaving the UK, others that are best and necessary to do after arriving in Spain. And then why is it essential to get some help when we become an expat in Spain? And then just how to get in contact if you want to follow up, because it's not possible to discuss your personal circumstances on the webinar at the moment. So if we could start with how is tax different in Spain than in the UK? Well, I think the first thing to say is that there are similarities. So we have an employment income tax approach, which is similar to the PAYE scheme in the UK. And perhaps unsurprisingly, we have inheritance tax in both countries. The things that are different is it starts with the tax year. The tax year is the calendar year in Spain, not from the 6th of April to the 5th of April as it is in the UK. And that makes a difference for things like reporting. If we have assets in both countries, you have different tax reporting dates, etc. That complicates it just a little bit. But it also is important to understand that any actions we take apply to the calendar year, not the tax year in Spain. Another difference is that in the UK, if we're only resident in the UK for part of the year, then they have a part tax year system in the UK, which we don't have in Spain. It's a full calendar year or nothing in Spain. Wealth tax, we have wealth tax in Spain on worldwide assets, and that's different because at the moment we don't have wealth tax in the UK. The income and capital gains from investments are taxed in a completely different tax code from the employment income that we have. Rental income is also considered to be earned income in Spain, and so is the pension income. So income from our pension is also taxed as income tax rather than the savings tax that comes from things like dividend income and capital gains. We have 17 different autonomous communities in Spain. These are different regions, and there's a comparison between the system in the US, where different states, we have state taxes and we have federal taxes. And even in the UK, we have the ability for the Scottish Parliament to raise taxes in Scotland, which are different than the UK. Same here happens with all the autonomous communities. And as a consequence, we have lots of different tax rates, allowances, etc. And so it's really important to know where you're looking to move to, which autonomous community you're going to, and get advice specifically about that community. A really big change, and this is one which people when they're receiving an inheritance in Spain don't necessarily appreciate, but inheritance tax in Spain is levied actually on the person who receives the inheritance, the beneficiary, not as in the UK on the estate of the person. And so that can lead to some planning opportunities. And because of a change of tax in the UK to a residency basis for inheritance tax, actually, for those of us who've been here for 10 years or more in Spain, it's actually providing a great deal of opportunities. It's going to take you 10 years to do your 10 years here, so I won't go through in detail at the moment, but just to say that there are inheritance tax planning opportunities which have arisen through this change of UK law. In Spain, we have inheritance tax between spouses, whereas in the UK, we have an interspousal allowance. I mention this one in particular because I've seen people come across and buy a house, joint names perhaps, not realize that there's inheritance tax between spouses. If one person passes away, then the other one actually has to pay inheritance tax on the amount, the value of the half that they receive from the deceased person. If you don't have enough funds to pay that inheritance tax, it becomes a problem. And so again, this is something we highlight quite early on and just trying to get the balance right for people, keeping cash available versus how much they pay for the house. The other one which comes up regularly is there is no tax-free cash lump sum from pensions as there are in the UK. So if we can move on one slide, please. Okay. The things that we need to be aware of coming from these differences starts with when you become tax resident. If we Google when am I a tax resident in Spain, you will see reference many, many times to the 183 days, but it's 183 days in a calendar year. That's the first thing. The second thing is that if from day one you make Spain your home, your main residence or a centre of economic interest, or, for example, if your spouse and minor children live across here before you come across, you will still be considered to be tax resident from that day. And I think it's important to say that there is a formal form to join the Spanish tax system, but to be considered tax resident, you only have to meet one of these criteria to become a de facto tax resident, even if you haven't completed the forms. Now, that means that some actions we need to take before we become tax resident in Spain, and others actions to be taken after we arrive in Spain, especially if we're actually moving from the UK. So could we have a look at those, please? Okay, the first thing is that because it's the calendar year and there's no part year in Spain, you should consider selling your main residence in the UK, your ISAs, and if you're over 57, taking your tax-free cash from your pension before you leave the UK. At this point, I'll just mention the Beckham law that Anna mentioned is available with a number of the visas. The Beckham law actually provides a tax rate of 24% up to 600,000 euros per year income. But a really important part of the visa is that for investments and basically investment income and capital gains outside of Spain, whilst you're on this Beckham law, they are free from income tax and capital gains tax in Spain. So if you're coming to Spain and you are certain to get the Beckham law, then actually the selling it the calendar year beforehand becomes less important. But for the majority of people who come on the other types of visas, selling in the calendar year before you move to Spain is important. And I think it's best demonstrated by an example. And so if we look at a situation where, let's say you sell the house in the UK in January, but don't move to Spain until November. So you're not going to be in Spain for 183 days. But if you bought your house in Spain in November and you make that your main residence, you will have been tax resident in Spain for the whole calendar year. Now, the sale of your UK house in January will be assessed for capital gains tax on the gain from when the house was purchased to when you sold it. And if you all think of your individual situations, if you've had the house a few years, the gain can be quite substantial. And so this is an important part of what to do in terms of the preparation before you actually move to Spain. The same applies to ISAs and the tax-free cash from pensions. But if the ISAs were sold and you've taken the tax-free cash in the January in this example, and you've got your new main residence in November in Spain, the ISA sale will be assessable for capital gains tax, and the tax-free lump sum, all of it, is added to your employment income and will be taxed in accordance with income tax rates. So it's really important to specify that your individual circumstances will dictate what needs to happen before, and you need to get professional advice from Spain before deciding what actions to take. I'll just clarify that, if I may, that the actions need to be taken, sorry, the advice needs to be taken from Spain, not just from the UK, because if you take advice from the UK, you'll actually get a UK-centric degree of advice, but you're moving to Spain and Spain will become your controlling tax authority. And so it's critical that you get advice from Spain as well, because it's the Spanish tax authority who are going to be making the assessment of whether or not you are a tax resident, whether your gains will actually count in that calendar year. So I'd just highlight that, and we can actually help out with getting that advice if that's required. When you get to Spain, the first and very simple thing, but again, it's something that we see people have difficulty with. If you come to Spain, you need to keep an emergency fund in a straightforward bank account that you can access, because you're going to have some known cost, for example, furnishing a house, but you're going to have some unexpected expenses as well. And I think just about all of us who've moved here have had things crop up that we didn't know we were going to have crop up when we moved. But it's important because often we see people overbuy on a house and then leave themselves short of the emergency fund. And this starts their time in Spain with a difficult situation. And if you get in a difficult situation, it's much more hard work to catch up and find yourself in a place where it's a more enjoyable experience. So another question that comes up regularly is, you do not have to move your pensions. People ask this all the time, do I have to move my UK pensions? No, you don't. And indeed, in many cases, your pension should be left in the UK. Now, again, I'll caveat that with your individual circumstances will be the deciding factor here, but in many cases, they should be left in the UK. And so how do we work things out here? Well, take financial advice as well as soon as possible after arrival in Spain from a professional and regulated advisor in Spain who deals with the international community. If we can get you on the right track to start off with, then you have a much more relaxed and enjoyable time in Spain. And so if we start with good advice from the very beginning for you, then it really does make a difference to your time in Spain. And so can we go on to the next slide, please? And well, The financial advisor is essential for an expat in Spain for a number of reasons, but including these. So if your financial advisor has years of experience of living in Spain, then they've gone through all of these processes themselves. We've gone through the paperwork. We have done it repeatedly. For myself, tax returns 18 years now here. And that experience just helps to guide you through exactly what's happening. The tax system in Spain, as in just about all the countries, it changes. And so you actually need not a Google search which comes up with a result which was posted on the internet even 12 months ago. You need to actually have up-to-date assistance with the Spanish tax system to get you on the right track to start off with. That includes for things like tax-efficient investments and also the pension situation here in Spain. And as just a very quick example, if you have investments where you're looking to take income from the investments, if you actually have a tax rate of 20% on the investment, then that's going to allow you to take less from your investment than if the tax rate is 40%. So making them tax efficient is important to make your money last when living in Spain. Liaising with local experts. When I moved to Spain, one of the first things I did was to have to help out somebody with an inheritance tax case. And so I vetted a number of tax lawyers and gestors, as we have here, and decided to go and ask for some guidance from one particular tax lawyer. In fact, as the person was from the UK, there was an interaction between UK inheritance tax and Spanish inheritance tax. And so he ended up mentoring me on the Spanish side. I ended up mentoring him on the UK side. And it's that type of local expertise, but also in cooperation from working together, that actually means that you get things done cheaper with lower fees because it takes less time to actually do. And it just makes, again, life very much more easy for you. At the Spectrum IFA group, we have 7 different discretionary fund managers who provide investment insights to us. They don't always agree, which is great because it allows us to actually take a more critical look at the insights that we're getting. It's difficult to get anything like the sort of level of insight if we're relying on the newspapers, the TV, and the internet. So that expert insight is very worthwhile. We also provide stability during market turbulence. And so this is particularly apt at the moment. And we have a situation where share prices, some of them dropped 20, 30% with the announcement of tariffs. But actually, where we've had discussions with people and we've tied in the requirement for their funds to match their plans for the future, we've been able to help guide people through. And even just in a very short time, for the indices, etc., and a few shares that I keep on my phone. If I look at the weekly return, actually some of the indices are up 6-7%. Gold today is up 1.35%. Now, if somebody is sold immediately after the tariffs were announced, you've lost all of that. You've actually definitely put in place the loss, and you can't replace that. You can reinvest, of course, but often it's better to actually just sit through some of these periods, and we help people decide when to take their investments and when to leave them where they are. And that's a type of transition itself, but we also support people during life transitions. And I think, again, the best way to explain this and to show you is to give you 3 examples. So the first example was somebody moving from the UK across to Spain. It's a family, the husband and wife both had life insurance. The amount of cover in the event of death of either of them was £1 million on both policies. We sat down, we went through our process, and as part of that process, we went through their existing situation. But when I found these 2 life insurance policies, I checked that were they in trust, and no, they weren't. They probably should have been put in trust from the UK. And so I put together the paperwork for the clients, even though those were existing policies, put them in trust. And by so doing, we saved the family on each policy £400,000 in UK inheritance tax on each policy. Now, that's how we can help for, depending on circumstances, but with the transition of moving from Spain to the UK is just a simple example of one. Another example is, as Miriam mentioned right at the beginning, we use cash flow modeling system to allow people to get some insight to what their financial future looks like. And so as I sat with existing clients, we updated the cash flow model, produced the graph, and the wife said, Dave, that's an awful lot of money to leave the kids. So she said, why don't you retire? So Dave said, well, I said, well, would you like to see the impact on your graph? So I was able to set the income to 0 from that day forward, in effect, retiring Dave. And yes, the graph changed, but the wife said, that's still a lot of money, Dave. And so Dave then said to me, okay, what happens if we double our expenditure? So I doubled the expenditure, again, fairly easy to do on the model. And it affected the graph again. And the wife then said, Dave, and he said, I know. He said, it's still a lot of money. He said, okay, I'll retire tomorrow. And that transition into retirement was facilitated because we could demonstrate that they were going to be in retirement, even if he took early retirement. And there was a clear method of actually demonstrating that to people. The third transition, which personally has been probably the most fulfilling for me, is a lady, 43 years married, husband had done her finances, all the finances for the family the entire time. He passed away. She was left more than worried, perhaps not an exaggeration to say terrified, that she didn't know where to start, what to do. A friend of hers is an existing client and said, look, go and speak to Barry. So we went through exactly the same process, built the cash flow model for her. Fortunately, her paperwork was in good order, so it's quite easy to do. And we went through, produced the graph and talked through the graph with her. And she looked at me and she said, I'm going to be okay, aren't I? And yes, she was going to be okay. And the worry, you could just see it drain out of her. And for me to be able to help that sort of situation was one of the most fulfilling things in terms of supporting the transition from being a married person to being widowed. So those are the sorts of things that we help with in terms of life's transitions. Can we go on to the next slide, please? Okay, so thank you very much, all of you. Here are my contact details. If you do wish to discuss personal details, you can contact me in one of these ways, including actually choosing a time that's convenient for you to actually book a call if you use the online system. And thank you very much. Can I go on to the next slide, please? And okay, I'll hand back to Miriam.
Thank you very much, Barry. Thank you, Anna, as well, for sharing your expert knowledge on all these essential aspects when planning to relocate to Spain from the UK. We will now open the floor to question. We have a bunch of very, very interesting questions. Let's have a look at our Q&A function. But before starting with the Q&A, I'd like to know briefly, knowing all the information that you've all shared, so in general terms, overall, how much time in advance should we start planning and preparing our relocation to Spain? Say 2 years or 3 years, 1 year is enough?
If you have the opportunity to do 2 years, then that's a very good way to do it, because it allows you to not have to rush to sell a house. It may mean you need some temporary accommodation for a while, but that again gives you time to organise that. You may need to actually store some furniture for practical problems. But if I just give an example, if you've made a gain of 300,000 on a house in the UK, the estimated tax in Spain is 87,180 euros at current exchange rates. And so actually starting early, maybe having to take a rental for a little while is still going to be worth it. But also just to say that occasionally it's possible, subject to Anna's visa's requirements, to come to Spain and actually live in a couple of different places to help you decide where you want to live. That's not actually setting you up as a main residence, and so that gives you a bit more leeway. But the critical thing is that the selling of the assets needs to be in the calendar year before you come.
Okay. Yes, and just add to that, that from the immigration perspective, we wouldn't need so much time, no, but it would be good to start to allow somewhere between 12 to 8 months before you relocate, just so you understand different visa options and you start planning in advance and you make sure you meet all the necessary criteria before you apply for it. And that we always need to go hand in hand, with the tax, residency preparations and the financials, etc. So when you relocate, all your sides are covered smoothly, so you avoid certain risks.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's start with the first question we have here. What happens if you are an EU citizen and the British employer moves you to the Spanish office? Is the process the same as if you were hired as a Spanish citizen in Spain?
Yes, in this case, let's see if I can find it here. We would be talking actually about the intra-company transfer procedure, which is this one. Yeah. This is the process. You can be on a payroll in your British company and then relocate it to work for a project or for a branch in Spain. And in this case, there would be two options. You can keep your contract still in the UK, or you can actually be hired by the Spanish office. That is something that we can assist as well to see what are the costs for the British company to keep the contract in the UK or to have the contract completely relocated to Spain. But it would be an intra-company transfer visa, and you can include your family members in that as well.
Okay, thank you. What would you say from your experience of working with UK citizens applying for Spanish visas that is the most popular route?
Yeah, I think that, we always ask a question, what is that you would like to do in Spain? What is your objective? Would you like to do nothing and just enjoy, the lifestyle, take a gap year, or just live on your passive income, on your investments? Would you like to keep your employment or your business in the UK and actively managing it? Or would you consider perhaps in the future starting your own business in Spain or seeking an employment in Spain. So depending on the answer on that question, we would see what is the most applicable strategy for each case. So currently, we are seeing a huge increase in the digital nomad visas because it's quite a convenient way for people to relocate, to keep everything as it is and just live in Spain and work from here. And the UK citizens are lucky enough to have that bilateral social security treaty that facilitates such relocations and allowing the employment to stay as it is in the UK for as long as UK allows that certificate of coverage to be enforced. But then also the non-lucrative visas are quite popular for those who just want to stay here for a few years to see whether they like it or not and consider something else in the future.
I think there's one related to digital nomad visa here as well, which visa allows me to remain tax residents in the UK yet living in Spain under the digital nomad visa and assuming my employer obtains the CA 3822 certificate. How does it affect my tax residence status in the UK and in Spain?
Yeah, so I'm afraid there is not a magic answer here, and I would just say a bit on the visa side, and Barry, you go on the taxes. I'm afraid you will be a tax resident in Spain, no matter which visa you have, if you live here for at least 183 days per calendar year. So if you actually plan to be in Spain most of the calendar year, you need to consider what action you need to take to reduce that tax impact when you relocate, because the visa type is not the determining factor here. The determining factor are different.
Okay, so we will be talking about financial aspects that Barry was talking about.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Okay. Regarding the Beckham law, someone asked, can you still use Beckham law after living in Spain on a digital nomad visa? Is the government planning any changes to the Beckham law?
Barry, would you like to comment or would you like me to answer?
But if you do the digital visa bit, I'll pick up after that.
Yeah. So for the digital nomad, as of now, what is possible, what qualifies you for a Beckham law is if you continue on the UK payroll. These two options, that if you are on a payroll or if you are self-employed. Self-employed people are specifically excluded from the digital nomad, from the Beckham law application, unless you qualify under certain criteria that you would really need to study with a tax lawyer. If you, for example, if you are appointed to be a director in a Spanish company, but that would mean other more complex visa options. But if you are on a payroll in a UK company and you have that certificate of coverage, you can be on a Beckham law as long as the UK allows you to keep that certificate of coverage. And as of now, I am not aware of any plans to change the Beckham law regulations.
I'd agree with that. I think it's fair to say that we have had some changes over the last 3 or 4 years to the Beckham rule. But in principle, as long as you meet the criteria, you can have 5 full tax years here in Spain on the Beckham rule. And it has the advantage of 24% for tax rate up to 600,000 euros as employed income. And it also actually gives you this exemption from capital gains tax and income tax on investment income and investment capital gains outside of Spain. So at the moment, there's nothing which is visible on the horizon to say that the law is due to change. But it's fair to say that I think many countries at the moment are reviewing the tax situation. And so, yeah, I think we just have to watch this space carefully. But as it stands at the moment, for joining the scheme where you are, it's unlikely that you would have the change applied retrospectively, hopefully. So it would be then for people who were joining after the change. And but in brief, at the moment, there's nothing on the horizon to suggest further changes.
Since this is a very interesting matter, I think we can organize a webinar, a specific webinar on Beckham's law and all the requirements, changes, and so on, because it's something really, really interesting for our audience. Thank you both. Let's continue. So by outbalancing the advantages and disadvantages of moving to Spain and changing your tax system, would you say that it really compensates a UK resident to move to Spain because of tax?
Not purely for tax, no. And the reason I say that is that in some respects, the tax rates are similar. But there is wealth tax here. The inheritance tax actually can, in circumstances, be more expensive in the UK than Spain. But I think if we were looking at doing that, maybe we'd look at other opportunities for jurisdictions with lower tax rates, and maybe then you'd look at it from that point of view. But I have to say, and again, this is personal, I'm sure Anna feels the same, but the quality of life here is the main reason. If you're not coming for work, even if you're coming for work, the quality of life is the factor which probably should be your guiding factor. And then we will make it as tax efficient as we possibly can for you. And I think that's the way to approach a move to Spain, because then you'll be happy here. You're likely to stay here longer. You're not likely to be living backwards and forwards. And life is just easier.
Yes, I agree to that. And I just wanted to say that we frequently, say this in the office, that you need to be in charge. You need to decide where you actually want to live, and then find the way for you to achieve that goal. And you always have professionals who can guide you to get where you want to in the easiest and fastest way possible.
Thank you. Let's continue with one question regarding double nationality. So my kids have double nationality, Spanish and English. Can they keep both when they are 18?
Yes, this is a very tricky question. And what happens is that different countries, they look at nationality matter from different perspectives. So as for Spain, Spain specifically recognized dual citizenship only with certain countries. So you must have a treaty, a bilateral agreement. So Spain has those treaties with so-called Ibero-American countries. That is basically where Spanish is the official language. And also some other countries, like Portugal, Brazil, Equatorial Guinea, now France has this agreement as well. So if you have the citizenship of one of those, you officially have the second citizenship recognized. For all other cases, including the UK citizenship, when you apply for the Spanish passport, you need to renounce formally all the previous nationalities that you hold. But for the UK, that renouncement, that letter that you sign in the Spanish Registro Civil, is not a legally enforceable document. You will actually need to start the process of quitting your British citizenship in front of the British authorities. And in practice, it happens that many, like thousands of people, they have de facto two passports. But Spain will not recognize that second citizenship. That means that in practice, for Spain, you will be only a Spaniard. For the UK, it may look different. So when we talk about the kids, when you reach the age of 18 and you need to specifically choose, which citizenship you are going to use, that may be a little bit differently. So then there is a possibility that they may lose their Spanish passports. But that's something that is better to look on an individual basis as well.
Okay, thank you. How is the UK pension affected when you relocate? And for how long do you need to pay UK tax after you move? In example, an inheritance in Spain, and you have been recently relocated.
Okay, so let's start with the UK state pension. The system with the UK state pension is that you will retain your rights to the UK state pension. You can't actually transfer that pot, if you like, across to Spain. So you will receive a pension from the UK, and it can be paid to you here in Spain. It's straightforward to do. And it will be based on the contributions that you've made and for how long you've made those contributions. So there's no change to the amount of pension you get from the UK. If you've got a forecast based on living in the UK right up until retirement, but then you move before retirement, then obviously that's going to have an impact. But if you know your contributions and how long you've been paying, and have an estimate of your likely pension based on just those contributions, then nothing's going to change. So that's the situation with the UK pensions.
Okay.
And with inheritance tax, then this is where the difference between the UK and Spain starts to come in. So if you have not been out of the UK for 10 years, you're still going to have your assets assessed for UK inheritance tax if you're the one who dies. And so that is going to be the situation for the 10 years until you qualify for that 10-year period. And so is there planning you can do? Yes, there is. Depends where the beneficiaries are, and we very quickly get into your personal circumstances here, the value of the estate, what type of assets you've got, etc. Because all those things can make a difference to the inheritance tax both in the UK and Spain. And this is the sort of thing where it's best answered, if you don't mind, actually off the webinar. But if you want to, then please do get in touch and we'll go through in more detail for you.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple of questions asking for capital gains taxes. I'm going to read one of them, and since we should be wrapping up soon, we'll try to talk a little bit further about that. And in case you have more questions later, you can address them to Barry and Anna later directly through the email address. So does Spain has investment options similar to ISA? How do capital gains taxes look like? Everything regarding capital gains, they are asking about, let me see it here as well. Pension in the UK, what if you have new investments in Spain, if you are receiving capital gains for new investments in Spain as well? How would it work?
Okay, yeah. So let's start with the ISA because that's a very good starting point. If you have an ISA when you're a tax resident in the UK and take your money out, it's tax-free. And so that's a very nice position to be in. But it's a UK tax allowance, if you like. It's a UK tax scheme. It's not recognised in Spain as a Spanish tax scheme where you can get your money out tax-free. And so if you come to Spain and then cash in an ISA, you're going to have to pay Spanish tax on that capital gain. This is why it's one of the things to consider selling in the calendar year before you come here. But do you pay capital gains tax on other investments in Spain? If you're tax resident in Spain, you will pay capital gains tax on any other investment, be they inside Spain or outside. And actually, this is a good point for the issue of tax. It's where you're actually tax resident, not where the asset is. So again, if you sell something in the UK and don't bring the money to Spain, I'm sorry, that's not going to get you around the tax laws. You are still going to be assessed and you're still going to have to pay the money. So you don't physically need to bring the gains to Spain. There are allowances and there are tax efficient methods of investing, but those, I would say, don't start with a product because you think it's tax efficient, but buy that product as a consequence. Start from the other end, start from your planning. When are you going to need income? How much emergency fund money do you need? But are you, this was one for me, are you likely to need to pay or want to pay a deposit for helping your children to buy their first house? Build those factors in first. And then once you've got an idea of how long you might need the money invested for, then actually look at the product. And but yes, to answer the question more simply, there are tax efficient methods where you don't pay capital gains tax for many, many years. And the same with any income tax on dividends, etc. In certain circumstances. But again, I go back to your personal situation. As Anna was saying with the visas, take control of that first, and then put the things to support that requirement in place. Not buy a product first and then have to try to work out how to make it work for you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Larry. Thank you so much, Anna, as well, for the time of for the sake of timekeeping. We do need to be finishing up now. Thank you all for attending. I hope you both you found it both interesting and useful. As I mentioned at the beginning, later today you'll receive the presentations that they've shared with us, together with the recording of this session and also their contact emails. So if you have further questions or we haven't read your question here, please don't hesitate to reach them out directly. They'll be more than happy to help you and to assess in your personal circumstances and help you as much as they can. Just as a little reminder, as you may know, as at the Spanish Chamber of Commerce, we have a very active events calendar, many interesting upcoming sessions. For those wanting to know more about the Spanish Chamber and our services, we will hold a brief online workshop tomorrow, Friday, 25th April at 10 a.m. It's just half an hour. We encourage you to register on our website and join us to get to know a little bit more about the SCC team and our services. And on Wednesday, 7th of March, we will hold a seminar in collaboration with member Mora Pedros, who will deep dive on the importance of the systemic economic modeling. This one will be in person and it's open to members and non-members of the Spanish Chamber. Thank you very much again to everyone. Have a nice day. Keep talking. Let's keep the conversation. You'll have our contact details and our email addresses. Thank you again to Anna and Baris for this insightful presentation and have a nice day. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. And thank you,
Yes.
Miriam and the Chamber
Yes.
for all the work that you are doing.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Bye.